Good afternoon, everyone. I hesitate to bang the gavel and start it, but we do have quorum, and it's, I think, not fair to our guests if we don't hear their testimony at least. I am told that we may be interrupted with votes in a few minutes, and if we do, then we have another tough decision to make, whether we make our rounds of questions and invite you back in February or January, or continue. But in the meantime, we want to welcome you here. We are televised today, I believe, and so I would ask you to take your telephones or your communication devices and put them on mute. This is meeting number 124 of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts for Wednesday, December 12, 2018. We are here today in consideration of Report 1, Connectivity in Rural and Remote Areas, of the 2018 Fall Report of the Auditor General of Canada. We're honored to have with us from the Office of the Auditor General, Mr. Jerome Berthollet, Assistant Auditor General, and Philippe Legoff, Principal. From the Department of Industry, Mr. John Newbley, Deputy Minister, Lisa Setkawaki, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategy and Innovation Policy Sector, and Michelle Gravel, Director General, Audit and Evaluation Branch. And from the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunication Commission, Mr. Ian Scott, Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer, as well as Christopher Seidel, Executive Director, Telecommunications, and Ian Bagley, Director General, Telecommunications. Who else do we have here? Perhaps that is it. And if I missed anybody, I don't think so. So we will now turn it over to Mr. Berthollet.
Yeah.
The bells are ringing.
I move we continue for another 15.
Mr. Christofferson moves that we carry on and hear the testimony until we have to get to votes. All in favor? Carried. Do we have a consensus on that? So I'll turn to Mr. Berthollet, and we await your statement, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you for this opportunity to discuss our Fall 2018 report on connectivity in rural and remote areas. Joining me at the table is Monsieur Philippe Legoff, who was the principal responsible for the audit. This audit focused on whether Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada and the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunication Commission, according to their respective roles and responsibilities, monitored the state of connectivity and developed and implemented a strategy to meet the connectivity needs of Canadians in rural and remote areas.
Over the past 12 years, detailed examinations of the state of broadband access in Canada have included recommendations that the federal government lead the creation of a national broadband strategy. However, at the time we finished our audit, the government had still not agreed to take that step. Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada indicated that it was reluctant to establish a strategy with an objective that could not be reached with the available funding. The department had continued to follow an approach that expanded broadband coverage to underserved parts of the country according to when funds were available. This approach left people in rural and remote parts of the country with less access to important online services, such as education, banking, and health care, and without information about when they could expect to have better access. On October 26th, Ministers for Innovation and Economic Development agreed to make broadband a priority and to develop a long-term strategy to improve access to high-speed internet services for all Canadians. Ministers committed to a goal of establishing universal access to internet speeds of 50 megabits per second download and 10 megabits per second upload. Chair, with respect to the state of connectivity in Canada, we found that the department relied on complete and accurate data to inform policy making aimed at addressing the connectivity gap in rural and remote areas.
Launched its Connect to Innovate funding program to bring high-speed internet to 300 rural and remote communities in Canada. We examined whether the department designed and managed this program to maximize the value for money for Canadians. We found that the department did not implement the program in a way that ensured the maximum broadband expansion for the public money spent. This program did not include a way to mitigate the risk that government funds might displace private sector investments. We also found that the department did not provide key information to potential applicants for funding under the program. As a result, some applicants had to invest more effort in preparing their proposals, and all applicants lacked full knowledge of the basis for selecting funding proposals. For example, there were a number of considerations to select projects, but the application guide did not specify the relative weight of each criterion used in the project selection process. Also, projects were less likely to be funded if they did not align with provincial and territorial priorities. However, these priorities were not made public. In our view, the department should have made the weights and priorities public. Many Canadians in rural and remote areas had to rely on fixed wireless broadband solutions. We found that small internet service providers did not have sufficient access to high-quality spectrum to support broadband deployment in rural and remote areas. For example, the department auctioned spectrum licenses for geographic areas that were too large for smaller service providers to bid on. The secondary market for unused spectrum did not function well, partly because licensees had little business incentive to make unused spectrum available for subordinate licensing. In addition, the information on unused spectrum was not readily available to interested internet service providers. Innovation, Science et Développement.
Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada and the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission have agreed with our 6 recommendations, and we understand that the department has prepared a detailed action plan. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertolet. We will now move to Mr. Newbley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to acknowledge that this is likely a final appearance at the Public Accounts Committee in this wonderful room, and I think it is a significant moment, if you like.
I'd like to start by thanking the Auditor General and his team for their report. This is an extremely important set of issues. We accept the recommendations and are moving forward to improve rural and remote connectivity.
Set of issues, and we are doing our utmost as officials, working with CRTC to improve rural and remote connectivity. 3 sets of comments related to the Auditor General's report as way of introduction. First on strategy, second on programs, and third on spectrum. On strategy, we agree, particularly in light of the CRTC decision in December 2016, declaring broadband as a basic service, on the need for a connectivity strategy. I personally believe this declaration has created a significant inflection point, which has required us to move from an evolutionary step-by-step approach to a more collaborative, integrated approach to broadband. In this context, the department's broadband programs predate this announcement of a broadband as a basic service, and in that sense, they were designed to address specific gaps in services, coverages, and speed. In that context, we focused on closing the gap in speeds between urban and rural areas and doing this in a way that carefully balances public interest and private investment. I would also add that connectivity is very much a moving target. Technology is constantly changing and improving, and in this context, a strategy is important, particularly as we set specific goals. As indicated earlier, work is already well underway. This past spring, we established a Federal Provincial Territorial Connectivity Committee. This committee worked to examine service levels, priorities, principles, and gaps, as well as to coordinate plans of action. In June, the department launched a national digital and data strategy consultation where connectivity is a foundational component. On September 25th, Minister Baines released the Economic Strategy Table reports, which focused in 6 sectors on the importance of digital infrastructure for economic growth of the economy. On October 26th, federal, provincial, and territorial ministers for innovation and economic development agreed to make broadband a priority, to set a set of connectivity principles, and to develop a long-term strategy to improve access to high-speed internet and mobile services for all Canadians. I do want to stress the 3 principles that were announced. 1, access to ensure reliable, high-quality services. 2, collaboration to leverage all partners and to end fragmentation. And 3, effective instruments, especially targeting market failures so government supports where it is most needed in the rural context. I would like to just end the comments on the strategy to remind members that there was, in 2001, a National Broadband Task Force led at that time by David Johnson, and it was started in January 2001. And if you look at their principles, they are remarkably similar to the ones that are at the heart of our new strategy. Second, on programs, the audit scoped in 2 programs, Connecting Canadians, a $240 million 5-year program launched in 2014 to install last-mile connection for 280,000 households that did not have access to internet speeds of 5 megabits per second for downloading data and 1 megabit per second for uploading data. And then the second program, Connect to Innovate, a $500 million 5-year program launched in 2016 to support new backbone infrastructure to connect institutions like schools and hospitals and to ensure communities have access to that backbone infrastructure. I do want to stress the findings of the audit focus solely on the design phase of the Connect to Innovate program, and that means that the program was in the early stages of program rollout, and the assessments were made in that context. I'm pleased to report, and I've been asked to do so by Minister Baines, that we've moved, the program will connect 900 communities across Canada. That's 3 times the program's original target. Of the 900 communities, 190 are Indigenous communities, some in the direst need of better high-speed internet. And I do want to stress that above all, what was targeted in this program were the areas of highest need for rural broadband.
In total, projects funded under the program will provide $1 billion towards improved connectivity.
Improved connectivity. In terms of other programs, I thought it would be important just to mention that we have 2 other initiatives underway of relevance to rural broadband. First, I'd like to note that Budget 2018 committed $100 million to support projects that relate to low Earth orbit satellites and next-generation rural broadband. These low Earth orbit satellites have considerable potential to provide Canadians living in rural and remote areas, especially in the north, with significantly improved access to internet and wireless services at more affordable prices. I also wanted to mention what we've called our Connecting Families initiative, an important public-private partnership oriented to low-income households. And to date, 9 industry service providers have voluntarily partnered with the government to offer low-cost home internet service to hundreds of thousands of eligible low-income Canadian families. Nearly 3,000 families have already signed up for $10 internet in the first 2 weeks. This is not, of course, all rural, nevertheless significant in that context. Lastly, in terms of spectrum and the issues raised there by the Auditor General, We agree that the impact on rural and remote areas is an important consideration when developing a licensing framework and spectrum activities. We continue to develop policies that encourage service into rural areas to ensure that all Canadians will benefit from high-quality services, coverage, and affordable prices. For example, we've just published a consultation on the development of similar geographic service areas for spectrum license, known as the Tier 5 consultation. So what we're doing there is trying to drill down to a smaller geographical area so that we have better understanding and mapping of what can be available in a smaller geographic area. In March 2019, the 600 megahertz spectrum auction is also scheduled to take place. This spectrum can provide expanded rural coverage, specifically because we set aside 40% of the spectrum for regional service providers. And in this context, we put in place stringent deployment requirements to ensure that the spectrum is used across the country, including rural areas. Let me just conclude by saying we recognize how important affordable high-speed connectivity is for rural communities and Canadians. We continue to work as hard as we can to service them. We see connectivity as a critical enabler of economic growth, and that is why we agree with the Auditor General concerning the need for a strategy, pursuing value for money wherever we can, and fully considering rural dimensions in spectrum auctions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newbley, our Deputy Minister of Industry. We'll now move to the CRTC and Mr. Ian Scott, Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
So I'll go right to my remarks. We appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee to discuss the findings of the Office of the Auditor General and, perhaps more importantly, to explain the CRTC's role in increasing connectivity for Canadians living in rural and remote areas of the country. As the Auditor General's report on connectivity in rural and remote areas noted, the Commission has a limited but important part to play. Our job as an independent regulator is to ensure Canadians have access to a world-class communication system that promotes innovation and enriches their lives. The CRTC believes that all Canadians, no matter where they live, should have access to broadband internet services on both fixed and mobile networks. As the Auditor General's report underlines, connectivity is vital in today's world.
Is there a problem? Okay, do we have copies made? Just want to make sure.
We did.
Okay, we'll carry on and we'll make sure that you get a copy here. I thought they would have been passed out. Maybe they were concerned. They'll, I think, carry on and we'll get you these. Especially, let me just interject and thank you for that. Because of the bells, we may be relying on the text to prepare ourselves for questions, which may end up, and I can tell you will end up being in the new year. So we want to finish with Mr. Scott, so I'm going to ask you to continue because we have about 10 minutes left.
We adjourn after we've heard from the witnesses?
That's my intent.
And then we would do the other half of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we have 13 minutes, so I think we can make it in 2.
You have 12:08.
Carry on, Mr. Scott. We'll take
Merci.
care of the light. Yep.
Broadband is the critical tool we use to communicate with each other, educate and entertain ourselves, find information, apply for jobs, and do routine activities from banking to accessing healthcare and other government services. So, to be clear, Canadians need access to an unfettered Internet experience. Le CRTC ne tire pas doute les...
The CRTC, in some areas, can and must contribute to achieving this objective. The announcement made in December 2016 stating that broadband internet is now considered a basic telecommunications service. And that's the perfect example of that.
New universal service objective. It calls for all Canadians to have access to fixed broadband services at download speeds of at least 50 megabits per second and upload speeds of 10 megabits per second, as well as an access to unlimited data option. The latest mobile wireless technology, which is currently called long-term evolution, better known as LTE, should also be available not only in Canadian homes and businesses, but also on major roads in Canada. By the end of 2021, we expect that 90% of Canadian households will have access to speeds matching the universal service objective. By our estimates, it may take as much as another decade after that for the remaining 10%. Mr. Chairman, 84% of Canadians have access to the internet today at those new target speeds. However, many people living in rural and remote areas can only dream of that level of service. While 97% of households in urban areas have access to service that meets the universal service objective, only 37% in rural areas have similar access. Par conséquent, 16%.
As a result, 16% of Canadian households, or nearly 2 million Canadians, still don't have access to the universal service objective speeds or unlimited data option. Fast, reliable, high-quality internet is simply out of reach, whether physically or financially, in many parts of the country. That message came through loud and clear during the CRTC's public hearing on basic telecommunication services. We heard from more than 50,000 people, individual Canadians, business owners, and leaders of Indigenous communities. Many of them told us that they're being left behind in the digital age.
Vary by region. Smaller maritime and prairie communities often do not enjoy the high speeds of major urban centers. The worst off and most in need are almost always found in Canada's north. Efforts to close these gaps need to be coordinated, as they are a shared responsibility among numerous players. Beyond the CRTC, this includes, of course, ISET, Industry, Science and Economic Development, but also provinces and territories, Indigenous governments, the telecommunications industry itself, and of course non-governmental organizations. For its part, the CRTC has announced a new broadband fund. It will provide up to $750 million over the next 5 years to help pay for infrastructure to extend internet and mobile wireless services to underserved areas. Our objective is to ensure that rural residents have comparable services to that available in urban areas. Of the $750 million to be made available, up to 10% of the annual total will be provided to improve services in satellite-dependent communities. These are communities that rely on satellite transport to receive one or more telecommunication services, such as telephone, fixed or mobile wireless, or internet access services. Of course, when we launch our first call for applications next year, it will be important for potential applicants to know where the greatest needs are located. And we agree with the Auditor General's report on this issue. Le mois dernier, nous avons publié les cartes montrant des régions du pays.
Last month, we published maps indicating the areas of the country that do not have access to broadband speeds of 50 megabits for download and 10 megabits for upload. The maps also identify communities without high-capacity transport infrastructure, and where homes or major roads do not have access to LTE mobile wireless service. In short, the areas of the country that do not currently meet our universal service objective. We have asked Internet and wireless service providers to verify the accuracy of our maps. This is consistent with our overall approach regarding broadband data. We make information available to the public in as much detail as possible, while respecting the confidentiality provisions of the Telecommunications Act. In fact, we will soon publish an update to our annual Communications Monitoring Report that will provide fresh data on broadband availability and other related information.
Memorandum of Understanding was established a number of years ago between the CRTC and ISED, and that agreement governs our collaboration and ensures that data is shared between our organizations. We're committed to sharing information on broadband infrastructure to support evidence-based decision-making. We're also committed to working with all levels of government as part of a collaborative effort to provide broadband internet service to underserved Canadians. Since announcing the details of our broadband fund earlier this fall, we have met with representatives from all provincial and territorial governments, as well as federal departments, to explain exactly how our fund will work and to understand their broadband funding programs. So, Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, extending broadband and mobile coverage to underserved households, businesses, and along major roads will require billions of dollars in investment and in infrastructure. There's no doubt that this objective is an ambitious one, in part because of our vast geography and shorter construction seasons in many areas of the country. The CRTC's broadband fund is obviously just one part of this equation. It is meant to be complementary to, but not a replacement for, existing and future public funding and private investment. Having detailed, accurate, and up-to-date information at the disposal of public and policymakers will ensure that funds are being directed to the most appropriate projects and communities. There also is no question that much work remains to be done, but I'm confident that this objective will be met in the same manner that railways and electrical grids were built in the past, by connecting one community at a time. Merci. Nous serions maintenant heureux de répondre à vos questions.
Thank you. We'd be happy to answer your questions.
Let me just say that we're going to adjourn very quickly and get to our votes, so we'll have time. We have 4 minutes to get there. And the other point is, when the Auditor General came with his report, this is one of the very first. Monsieur Massé and myself and Mr. Dreeshen, who doesn't normally sit on this committee, these are very important issues to our rural constituencies. And so this was the first one we decided to call after this new audit report. And so I apologize on behalf of everyone here for the disruption that we've had with votes today, but I do want to wish and thank you for your testimony. We will call you back in the new year. Hopefully you'll be available then. And I also want to wish all of you a very happy holidays and Merry Christmas and whatever else. And we trust that you'll have a good break. And to our committee, I would wish you all the same. A very good break now, and come back refreshed and ready to study more. So we're now adjourned. Oh, one other thing off the record. This is Andre's final